What does publishing an automation project mean in UiPath? Publishing of the automation package indicates archiving it and the related files present in particular folder for sending it to robots and then executing it. When you will be connected to the orchestrator, then the project will go to the orchestrator field and then it will be displayed on packages page. And from this place, you can easily distribute them to the other robots after you assign some packages to the environment. Otherwise, it will get stored locally in the Studio feed. What is project debugging in UiPath? Debugging is the process of identifying and removing errors from a given project. Coupled with logging, it becomes a powerful functionality that offers you information about your project and step-by-step highlighting, so that you can be sure that it is error-free. Logging enables you to display details about what is happening in your project in the output panel. This, in turn, makes it easier for you to debug an automation. Breakpoints enable you to pause the execution of a project so that you can check its state at a given point. What is tracing and how do you enable tracing in UiPath? By default, UiPath generates log files that track the activity of Studio and the robots. These logs can be accessed from the Execute ribbon tab, by clicking the Open Logs button. For complex issues, more details about your automation are needed. To gather them, tracing must be enabled. In UiPath Studio, tracing generates a ECL file. It contains binary log data at the trace level, such as disk accesses or page faults, and is used to log high-frequency events while tracking the performance of an operating system. In UiPath Studio, which recorder is suitable for virtual environment automation? Citrix Recorder. How can we identify a column in a database in UiPath Studio? We can identify a column by using a column index, using a column name. Which activities can be used to iterate through an array in UiPath Studio? Following are the activities that can be used to iterate through an array in UiPath Studio. For each activity. While activity. If we scrape some text and we know it contains only digits, how can we make the scrape better? By using Google OCR with numbers option only. Is it possible to click a button using the click image activity if it's not visible to the human eye? No, this is only possible with selectors. How can you get a value from an application, if it changes for each transaction? This could be done by finding a static element and then use scrape relative functionality to extract the value. What does the accuracy property represent in the click image activity? It is a unit of measurement from 0 to 1 which expresses the minimum similarity between the image you're searching for and the one to be found. In UiPath Studio, how elements are recognized on screen? They can be recognized through the attributes of UI elements. What does publishing mean in UiPath Automation Studio? Publishing of the automation package indicates archiving it and the related files present in particular folder for sending it to robots and then executing it. When you will be connected to the orchestrator, then the project will go to the orchestrator field and then it will be displayed on packages page. And from this place, you can easily distribute them to the other robots after you assign some packages to the environment. Otherwise, it will get stored locally in the Studio feed. What is a single block activity in UiPath? Single block activity is the smallest type of project which is mainly called a sequence. They are suitable for linear processes as they enable you to go from one activity to another seamlessly, and act as a single block activity. They can be reused time and again, as a standalone automation or as part of a state machine or flowchart. What are control flow activities in UiPath? Control flow is a concept borrowed from computer science that refers to the order in which actions are performed in an automation. A proper control flow can be achieved through the intelligent use of variables and activities. What is the assign activity in UiPath? The assign activity is an important activity that is going to be used quite often, as it enables you to assign a value to a variable. You can use an assign activity to increment the value of a variable in a loop, sum up the value of two or more variables and assign the result to another variable, assign values to an array and so on. By default, This activity is also included in the Favorites group. To remove it, right-click it and select Remove. What is the delay activity in UiPath? The delay activity enables you to pause the automation for a custom period of time, in the HH/MS format. This activity proves itself quite useful in projects that require good timing, such as waiting for a specific application to start or waiting for some information to be processed so that you can use it in another activity. What is the do-while activity in UiPath? The do-while activity enables you to execute a specified part of your automation while a condition is met. When the specified condition is no longer met, the project exits the loop. This type of activity can be useful to step through all the elements of an array or execute a particular activity multiple times. You can increment counters to browse through array indices or step through a list of items. What is the if activity in UiPath? The if activity contains a statement and two conditions. The first condition is executed if the statement is true, while the second one, the activity in the else section, is executed if the statement is false. If activities can be useful to make decisions based on the value of variables. What is the switch activity in UiPath? The switch activity enables you to select one choice out of multiple, based on the value of a specified expression. By default, the switch activity uses the integer argument, but you can change it from the Properties panel, from the type argument list. The switch activity can be useful to categorize data according to a custom number of cases. For example, you can use it to store data into multiple spreadsheets or sort through names of employees. What is the for each activity in UiPath? The for each activity enables you to step through arrays, lists, data tables or other types of collections so that you can iterate through the data and process each piece of information individually. What is the break activity in UiPath? The break activity enables you to stop the loop at a chosen point and then continue with the next activity. What is the while activity in UiPath? The while activity enables you to execute a specific process repeatedly, while a specific condition is met. The main difference between this and the do-while activity is that, in the first one, the condition is evaluated before the body of the loop is executed. This type of activity can be useful to step through all the elements of an array or execute a particular activity multiple times. You can increment counters to browse through array indices or step through a list of items. How do you activate UiPath Studio license? Online activation. Click the Activate license. The UiPath registration window is displayed. Fill in the email address field with your email address. Fill in the license key field with the license key you received. Select the automatic activation. Click the Activate. Your UiPath license is now activated and you can start creating automation workflows. What is state machine in UiPath? A state machine is a type of automation that uses a finite number of states in its execution. It can go into a state when it is triggered by an activity, and it exits that state when another activity is triggered. They also enable us to add conditions based on which to jump from one state to another. These are represented by arrows or branches between states. How do you install Chrome extension for UiPath Studio? From UiPath Studio. In the Setup ribbon tab, from the Setup Extensions menu, select Chrome. The Chrome Web Store is opened in Google Chrome. Click the Add to Chrome. A confirmation dialog box is displayed. Click the Add extension. The extension is now installed. Note, generally by default extension is off. How to import namespaces in UiPath. To add new namespaces to your library, open the Imports. In the Enter or Select Namespace field, start typing the namespace that interests you. Note that suggestions are provided while you type in case you are not exactly sure what you are looking for. Click the drop-down arrow to view and browse all available namespaces. Select the desired namespace. The namespace is added to the imported namespaces. To remove a namespace, select it and press Delete. Note that namespaces can only be deleted if they aren't used. For example, you can delete a namespace if the assembly that contains it is no longer referenced by the project. What are arguments in UiPath? Arguments are used to pass data from a project to another. In a global sense, they resemble variables, as they store data dynamically and pass it on. Variables pass data between activities, while arguments pass data between automation. As a result, they enable you to reuse automation time and again. UiPath Studio supports a large number of argument types, which coincide with the types of variables. Therefore, you can create generic value, string, boolean, object, array, or data table arguments, and you can also browse for nut types, just as you do in the case of variables. Additionally, arguments have specific directions, in, out, property, that tell the application where the information stored in them is supposed to go. When would you choose system integration over RPA? I would prefer system integration if the return on investment, ROI, is better than deploying RPA. But you will find only a few projects which will have that scenario. If you are working in the local environment and have similar kinds of platforms, software, try for system integration. System integration will mostly require full access to the back-end scripts, and the timeline for deployment is most likely higher than RPA. If you are in back-office operations, then you may find multiple platforms like legacy, GUI, and web-based all being used together. This creates complexity to system integration. On the other hand, RPA software is platform agnostic. They could be configured from front-end also with any kind of platform. The timeline is lesser and it's easy to train or find RPA developers. Thus it's a preferable choice to go with RPA. How do I assess the processes for RPA and calculate FTE saves? There are no hard and fast rules, but the following are some desirable attributes that your identified process should possess. High transaction volumes. Manual data entry and/or extraction. Rule-based. Multiple handling of the same data. Disparate systems, especially legacy ones. Stable processes. Regarding the full-time equivalent, FTE, savings, the concept is rather simple. You need to determine how long it takes for an employee to complete the transaction currently, and estimate the time it will take a bot to complete the same transaction. The time savings per transaction completed multiplied by the number of transactions will give you the figure you need. Note the above is meant to be a quick back-of-the-envelope calculation of the FTE savings. Also, the challenge when calculating the FTE savings, prior to implementing RPA, lies in justifying and validating the assumptions you have made. Can UiPath run multiple instances of the same process with one robot in one system simultaneously? Yes, it can run the same program simultaneously in two robots where each system is registered as one robot. On a machine with a Windows Server, 2008 R2 or 2012 R2 or 2016, operating system. You can run the same process with all robots at the same time. You can run different processes with all robots at the same time. These are called high-density robots. How do you expand a tree view structure in a web page using UiPath? If you are talking about expanding the root node for a collapsed tree, you probably would use click image since that would likely be unique. If you are trying to expand a particular node, you'd likely use click text, and give it a certain -x offset in the position property so that when it targets the text you want to expand the node for, it will end up clicking on the plus. How will you price an RDA project to a customer? First, we will identify the scope of the automation, like how the business process flows, how many applications are involved, how complex the interactions between these applications. Once we know all these, then we will work at the number of bots to be deployed and estimate the cost for each bot to develop and deploy. This is how we do at a high level. Usually based on the complexity involved, the project may go anywhere between 6 to 12 months. What are selectors and wildcards in UiPath? Wildcards helps in replacing the strings. It is helpful when you will deal with the attributes which are changing dynamically in the selector. And the selector helps in automatically generating the selection by using the wildcard. Why do you perform data scraping in UiPath? Data scraping helps in enabling the extraction of structured data, document or application. Structured data is a group of information that is organized and presented in a predictable pattern. What is the assign activity in UiPath? We need the assign activity because it helps in assigning values to the variables. Mostly they are used when there is a need for incrementing the variable's value when there is a loop. You can add the value and then store them to another variable, or it helps in assigning the value to some array. What is the delay activity in UiPath? UiPath uses the delay activity for making you pause or stop the automation for some period. This is mainly used in projects where you need good timing, like waiting and then start of some particular applications, or waiting for information processing, which you can use in the different activity. What is the do while activity in UiPath? Do while helps in enabling the program to execute the specific part of an automation when the condition will be true. If the condition is not true, then the loop won't be executed. This activity is used for step through the element present in the array, or it also helps in executing any particular activity for many times. You can use counters for keeping track of the increment. What is the if activity in UiPath? If activity is used when you will deal with two conditions where the first statement will get executed if the condition is true, while the second one will get executed when the statement will be false. When the variable will have values, then the if statement is basically used. What is the switch activity in UiPath? The switch activity helps you to choose one out of the others based on the specified values of the expressions. Switch activity uses integer argument as default, but you can easily change it by going to the Properties panel and selecting the required type argument list. It helps in categorizing the data depending on the case number. What is the while activity in UiPath? This activity helps in processing a specific activity repeatedly when a particular condition is true. The primary difference between while and do while is that in the former one the condition will be evaluated first and then the loop will be executed. What is the for each activity in UiPath? This statement helps in enabling the step with the help of arrays, data tables, lists, or any other sort of collections. It enables you to iterate the data and then process every information individually. What is the break activity in UiPath? With the help of break activity, you can easily stop a particular loop at any chosen point, and at that time you can continue with any other activity. What is Package Manager in UiPath? With the help of Package Manager, you can easily download the activity packages, frameworks, libraries, wrappers, etc., and you can also check the ones which are already present in the container, and you can also update them or add or remove them. All these features are only possible because of Manage Packages window, which you can easily open by clicking the Package Manager button by pressing on the Activity panel. What is Project Debugging in UiPath? Debugging is used for identifying as well as showing the error for a particular project. It has breakpoints and logging, and it is a type of powerful functionality which will help you to gather information about the project and will highlight the errors step by step. Logging helps you to know what your projects are going through when the programming is done and is shown in the output panel, which helps in making the process of debugging easier. Whereas breakpoints help in pausing the execution of your project to helps you check the state of the program at a particular point. What is automatic recording in UiPath? Automation recording is used as they are very much useful, plus it can save you a lot of time, as this automatic recording will provide a skeleton of the entire business processes, so you can easily parameterize and customize the project. What is publishing an automation project means in UiPath? Publishing of the automation package indicates archiving it and the related files present in particular folder for sending it to robots and then executing it. When you will be connected to the orchestrator, then the project will go to the orchestrator field and then it will be displayed on packages page. And from this place, you can easily distribute them to the other robots after you assign some packages to the environment. Otherwise, it will get stored locally in the studio feed. What are UI activities properties in UiPath? There are different types of activities which are used in the web pages or in automating apps, and you can easily find them in the section of Activities panel categorized under UI Automation. These UI activities have many properties in common. Continue on error. Even when the activity will show error still, the automation will continue its work. This field works in the Boolean values. False is the default value in here. The project won't show any error if the activity on this field is set to true inside the try catch. Delay after, it helps in pausing the activity. Delay before, it helps to pause before any activity. Timeout MS, it helps in finding the element before the error is shown. Wait for ready, it will wait until the target is ready and before you perform the activity. Target, it helps in identifying the element in UI before the activity starts. How can you enable image and text-based process automation? If you want to enable the image and text-based process automation, you will have to see that the UIPATH has some features that will simulate the keyboard or mouse input, like hovering, clicking, text recognition, OCR activities etc. that helps for identifying by UI elements by screen scraping. Image or text automation is basically used in the situations where the UI automation won't work, like in the environment of the virtual machine or in the places where finding selectors by using the normal methods is not easy. What is Citrix automation in UiPath? Do you have any experience in virtual machine automation? The virtual machine is the emulation of the computer science. If you efficiently want to process the automation in the Citrix machines, then you will need techniques and tool. The Citrix automation in UiPath is used for operating the virtual machine. Yes, I have worked on the virtual machine automation previously. These are some of the important interview equation which you will face during UiPath interview. It contains both beginners level questions to questions for experienced people. To learn more about UiPath, it is very important to have a sound knowledge of automation and virtual machine. UiPath Keyboard Shortcuts. The complete list of keyboard shortcuts for UiPath Studio. Ctrl+D ignores the activity that is currently selected by placing it into a comment out container. Ctrl+E removes the activity from the comment out container it was placed in. Ctrl+T places the activity inside the try section of a try catch activity. Ctrl+Shift+N creates a new blank project. Ctrl+N creates a new sequence diagram in the current project. Ctrl+O enables you to open a previously created workflow. Only XAML files are supported. F1 enables you to access a help topic associated with the currently selected element. Ctrl+L opens the folder where the log files are stored. Shift+F9 removes all the breakpoints in the currently open workflow. Ctrl+S saves the currently open workflow. Ctrl+Shift+S saves all the workflows that are currently open. F5 runs the workflow that is currently open. F7 runs the currently opened workflow in debug mode. F8 checks the currently open workflow for validation errors. F9 marks the selected activity with a breakpoint. F10, when debugging, steps over the execution of a block of activities in the currently selected workflow. F11, when debugging, enables you to step into a block of activities and executes the first one. Pause pauses the execution of the current workflow, in both normal and debug mode. F12 stops the execution of the current workflow, in both normal and debug mode. Ctrl+C copies the selected activity or activities to the clipboard. Alt+Ctrl+W opens the web recording toolbar. Alt+Ctrl+B opens the basic recording toolbar. Alt+Ctrl+C opens the Citrix recording toolbar. Alt+Ctrl+D opens the desktop recording toolbar. Alt+Ctrl+F sets the focus to the search box in the Activities panel. Ctrl+P opens the Manage Packages window. Q60. Difference between UiPath versus Selenium? Answer: Selenium has been designed for testing the web applications or website. A Selenium can't interact with a huge number of applications. It is unable to use one's application's output and use them as a new input for another application and is not compatible with the virtual environments like the Citrix. whereas UIPATH generally designs the software process that helps in automation. It is a sort of RPA tool which will help in performing activities like the human. What is value and scope of data types in UIPATH? Answer: variable is used for storing data. You can also change the value of the variable. When some data is stored within some variable, then that value can be of many types. In UIPATH, there is a huge number of data types starting from text number, generic value, time, date and data tables. What are arguments in UIPATH? Answer: argument helps the program to create some arguments where you can also make some changes. In arguments, you have to mention the name, which is mandatory. Write about the direction and select the argument type, whether they are a string, object, int32 array. What are properties in UIPATH? Answer: in UIPATH, you can use a lot of activities which is used for automating the apps of the web apps, which you can see in the activity panel under the category of UI automation. The common properties of these activities are continue on error, delay after, delay before, timeout ms, wait for ready, and target. What are flowchart activities in UIPATH? Answer: the flowchart is generally used for various settings. It helps in large jobs as well as in small projects, and you can also use them in different projects. Flowcharts help in presenting multiple branching of logical operators, helps in building complex business and for connecting the activities in many ways. What is flow switch in UIPATH? Answer: flow switch and flow decision are the same things, but it has one difference, and that is in the flow switch each branch of the flow switch is known as flow step and is not just restricted to true or false branch. What are sequence activities in UIPATH? Answer: the sequence is actually the small type of projects which are suitable mainly for linear processes and will enable you to switch from one activity to the another seamlessly. It actually acts as a single activity block. You can reuse them for many times. What is branching in UIPATH? Answer: when it comes to branching in UIPATH, there comes a condition. This condition is used when an activity is having more than one solution occurs after a certain condition. Condition statement will help the program to determine what behavior should be shown when any condition will be selected. How do you create a project in UIPATH? Answer: for creating a project in UIPATH, you will have to create a folder with your name and then select a particular location. So the new folder will get saved in the default directory. Explain about recording in UIPATH Studio. Answer: UIPATH has 4 recordings. They are Basic, Desktop, Web, and Citrix. Basic: it is used for the generation of the full selector for every activity but has no container. Hence the automation is much slower but is good for the single activities. Desktop: it is great for multiple actions and desktop apps. It is much faster than the Basic and uses the container where the activities will be enclosed and will also have partial selector. Web: it is used for recording in the web pages and for browsing. It also generates the container. Citrix: it is used for recording of virtualized environments, permits texts, images and the keyboard automation. What are selectors and wildcards in UIPATH? Answer: wildcards helps in replacing the strings. It is helpful when you will deal with the attributes which are changing dynamically in the selector. And the selector helps in automatically generating the selection by using the wildcard. Why do you perform data scraping in UIPATH? Answer: data scraping helps in enabling the extraction of structured data, document or application. Structured data is a group of information that is organized and presented in a predictable pattern.